welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a facilities director or you're running procurement for multi-campus clinical environments, you already know the massive headache of constantly patching up failing infrastructure. It's exhausting, right? Well, today, we're giving you a definitive, expert-level briefing on solving one of the absolute most chronic, yet somehow totally overlooked operational failures in healthcare. We're talking about wall coverings. We're going to completely dismantle the outdated ways of doing things, and we'll hand you a bulletproof strategy for upgrading your facilities. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to cover the real healthcare wall challenge, uncover the true costs of traditional vinyl, and introduce the direct-to-the-wall solution. Then we'll look at clinical-grade durability, how this ties into wayfinding and ESG sustainability, and finally, we'll wrap up with ROI and getting leadership buy-in. All right, Section 1, the Healthcare Wall Challenge, or as we like to call it, substrate brutality. Now, what's really interesting about this is the glaring disconnect between what procurement expects and what your facilities teams actually experience on the ground. Traditional vinyl wall coverings are sold with this promised life cycle of, 5 to 7 years? But let's be real about the clinical reality here. In demanding spaces, think ICUs, ERs, heavy traffic corridors, these legacy materials are routinely failing in just 3 to 4 years. The unique, everyday constraints of a medical environment are literally just too brutal for them. And it's a completely predictable, vicious cycle. First, you get adhesive breakdown, which is just triggered by standard temperature fluctuations and humidity cycling. Then, the seams start separating because they're constantly hit with cleaning chemicals and water. Next thing you know, you've got surface discoloration from alcohol-based sanitizers and quaternary ammonia. And then comes the mechanical damage. Bed rails, gurneys, heavy foot traffic just physically tearing the material to shreds. And we all know this isn't just an eyesore. Compromised walls are a severe infection control liability. So this requires a massive paradigm shift. As experts working deeply in this space, we advocate moving from simply managing failure to actively designing this space. Top-tier facilities directors, they don't just react to peeling walls by ordering emergency vinyl patches anymore. That's a Band-Aid. Instead, they strategically upgrade the architecture itself to end that whole cycle of reactive maintenance once and for all. Moving on to Section 2. Let's talk about the true costs of traditional vinyl, which is essentially a hidden drain on your resources. 500 to 800 pounds. Think about that for a second. That is the sheer amount of non-biodegradable material that is just destined straight for a landfill from one single standard wall covering replacement project in a 200-bed hospital. It's a massive environmental liability, sure, but it's also a huge unseen disposal cost that's secretly hitting your budget every few years. And when you actually map this out over a decade, the status quo is literally hemorrhaging your operations. Procurement teams often calculate their initial linear foot costs and think, okay, we're right on track. But a 10-year analysis consistently proves that traditional vinyl runs 40 to 60% over budget. Why? Well, because a typical 50-room clinical refresh eats up 2 to 4 weeks of staff coordination. 2 to 4 weeks! It requires room closures, temporary disruptions, endless material handling. It completely blows up that initial purchase quote. Which brings us to Section 3, the direct-to-wall solution. This is a true architectural upgrade. This is the technical intervention that completely neutralizes all those failures we just talked about. Direct-to-wall printing uses industrial inkjet technology to apply high-resolution graphics directly onto your existing wall surface. We are completely bypassing legacy vulnerabilities here. No adhesive volatilization, no prefabricated panels to peel off. Instead, the ink forms a literal molecular bond right with the substrate itself. And the operational flexibility you get with this is absolutely unmatched. You have ultimate substrate flexibility. We're talking seamless application on drywall, concrete, CMU block, brick, you name it. Because it's printed directly onto the environment at an architectural scale, you could have a 50-foot corridor get a single continuous image with 0 seams. And, critically for your procurement timelines, you get custom content without those weeks-long fabrication delays that are just so typical of vinyl. You entirely skip the screen setups and tooling, shrinking procurement cycles from months down to mere weeks, even across wildly varying multi-campus conditions. Okay, Section 4, clinical grade, durability, and speed, because we need 0 disruption. So the crucial point is that this isn't just about making a space look pretty. This is a rigorously tested, clinical-grade surface. This methodology passes the absolute strictest ASTM D3359 adhesion and D4157 abrasion standards. Because of that molecular bond we mentioned earlier, your environmental services teams can aggressively scrub these walls with hospital-grade disinfectants, quaternary ammonia, hypochlorite cleaners, thousands of times. The graphic maintains absolute color accuracy and integrity. Traditional vinyl, it would degrade almost immediately under that kind of intense chemical load.
Let's look at how this deploys operationally, because we all know healthcare runs 24/7. It's a battle-tested 4-step process. First, design and file approval takes about 1 to 2 weeks. Second, a quick 1-day substrate assessment. Third, and this is the big one, the installation takes just 4 to 6 hours. Finally, same-day quality verification. That 4 to 6 hour window is a total game changer. It means zero adhesive curing time, zero off-gassing, absolutely no room closures, and completely uninterrupted patient care.
Let's pivot to Section 5, Wayfinding and ESG Sustainability, and look at the systemic benefits. Beyond just protecting your walls, this technology fundamentally solves a massive patient experience problem: navigation. By actually embedding color coding and departmental signage directly into the architecture, we get rid of all those cluttered, bolted-on signs and peeling floor decals. It creates a highly intuitive environment that noticeably drops patient navigation times, and it significantly takes the burden off your front desk staff. And this brilliantly illustrates how it translates directly into hitting your hospital's ESG commitments. When you transition to a direct-to-wall program that uses non-toxic, water-based, low-VOC inks and boasts a 10-plus-year lifespan, you're achieving a massive 60 to 80% reduction in lifecycle waste compared to traditional vinyl. You literally only print what you need, completely eliminating excess inventory and all those messy disposal streams. And here's the absolute kicker for facility managers. Fast forward to year 10, or whenever you're ready for a lease transition or a full facility renovation. You don't strip it. You aren't in there scraping adhesive. You simply paint over the graphic with standard latex or acrylic paint. That's it. No removal, no demolition, and the underlying substrate is perfectly preserved, saving you thousands in drywall repair. Finally, Section 6. ROI and leadership buy-in. Let's look at the business case. Let's move to decisive and see how this builds a completely new financial reality for procurement. When we look at a 10-year total cost of ownership for, say, a typical 2,000 square foot space, yes, the initial material costs for direct-to-wall are a bit higher, about $9,000 compared to $6,000 for vinyl. But look at the total life cycle. Vinyl demands $4,000 in labor, $2,000 in prep, and an inevitable $8,000 replacement cycle. That drags your total to a staggering $20,000. Direct-to-wall, $2,000 in labor, zero prep, zero replacement. Your 10-year total is just $11,000. You are practically cutting costs in half while drastically upgrading your infrastructure. Now, to transition your vendor management structure, you have to build internal consensus seamlessly. So here is the exact playbook to secure leadership buy-in. 1. Present the hard data. Literally hand them the ASTM performance docs and chemical resistance certifications. 2. Provide anonymized case studies from peer healthcare networks to prove this is already working flawlessly at scale. And 3. Execute a high-visibility pilot program. Pick just one clinical corridor, install it overnight, and let your leadership and environmental services teams touch, clean, and experience the results directly for themselves. Which leaves us with one final thought to reflect on as we wrap up this explainer. If your current vinyl wall coverings are functionally guaranteed to fail in a demanding clinical environment in just 3 years, are you really saving money on that initial quote? Or are you just blindly budgeting for future operational disruptions? It might just be time to rethink your multi-campus infrastructure. Thanks for joining me today.